Hey everyone, Andy Raffel from eTechnics.com. Now with Christmas coming up, there's going to be a lot of people out there wanting to buy systems for their kids who primarily are going to be gaming at 1080p. So why not bring out a graphics card that's primarily aimed at 1080p gaming? Let's do this. The Virtuoso RGB Wireless SE headset from Corsair. With a sleek premium lightweight design, comfortable memory foam ear cups and subtle RGB lighting, it doesn't look like your typical gaming headset. With a detachable broadcast grade microphone, patented slipstream wireless technology and tuned 50mm neodymium premium drivers, it's simply the best headset Corsair have ever created. Find out more by clicking the link in the description below. So as I mentioned, these cards I guess are going to be aimed at 1080p gaming, 1080p 60 frames per second. Now they're not, I guess, just going to be sold to the DIY market. I can actually see these really being aimed at, I guess, the system integrator market as well. Something where they're going to shift absolute monumental kind of sheer volume of graphics cards. And the good thing is, I guess for Nvidia, there isn't really anything to compete with these new 1650 Super cards because, well, AMD don't really have anything. Yes, they've announced the RX 5500, but well, where is it? So for us, we're going to be comparing this, I guess, at the RX 580, especially when it comes to pricing and how similar they are. So to talk about pricing, let's go through the price of what an MSRP card is and what these three cards that we have here are going to be. So MSRP on the 1650 Supers are coming in at $160 in the US and £150 in the UK. Now we've got three models here, the first one being the Palit Storm XOC, which is coming in at £150. Obviously it isn't available in the US because Palit don't really exist on the US market. The Zotac is coming in again at $160 or £150, so again it's hitting MSRP. The MSI is coming in slightly higher at $180 or £180. So those are the prices of the cards, but what exactly do you get for your money? I mean, what is the point of the 1650 Super? What does it give us above the 1650? Is this a refresh? Is it not? Let's talk about some specs. So to start with, looking at the GTX 1650 and comparing it with the Super, straight away we're going to see that there is a CUDA core increase from 896 on the GTX 1650 to 1280 on the Super. There's a core clock boost from 1485 MHz up to 1530 and a consequent boost clock from 1665 up to 1725. Now, while the memory speed has technically been decreased, there is actually an increase there as well because we've actually gone from GDDR5 up to GDDR6, which does give us extra bandwidth. And the fact that it's using a 192-bit bus now instead of 128-bit, again, is just giving us extra throughput. Now, another key feature that these cards have over their non-Super variant is the fact that they are VR ready. I know, we're all thinking it, marketing bump, but yeah, let's muddle on. They also do have DisplayPort 1.4a, so again, opening up, I guess, newer technology. Another key difference under the hood is the fact that these are all using the TU116 core, much like the rest of the 16 series cards, so the 1660, 1660 Super, and the 1660 Ti, as opposed to the 1650 that use the kind of slightly smaller TU117 core. Now, moving from that smaller TU117 core to the TU116 does mean, characteristically, there is one key change with all of the cards that you're going to find in this 1650 Super range, whether it be from Zotac, Palit, or MSI. Basically, the power has been bumped up from 75 watts up to 100 watts, and that does mean that, sadly, they all require a single 6-pin PCI Express connector. While that's not going to mean, I guess, mass amounts of differences for most people out there, I don't know, I like the fact that the 1650 didn't need any supplementary power. So I want to go through each of these cards kind of separately and show you what their key characteristics are, starting with the Palit card. So the Palit card is actually quite a short card, but in a weird roundabout way, it does look a lot taller than what it actually is. And I think that's because it features this large kind of 100mm fan in the middle of it. It does feature a black plastic shroud that does, in my opinion, look a little bit cheap, but for a card that's hitting MSRP, you can't really complain too much. Being a small card, it is going to be perfect for those wanting a media PC or any other kind of small form factor system. In terms of the cooling, there are no heat pipes to be seen, and instead we just see a large metal heatsink. It will take up 2 slots in your system, and for the connectors, we've got a single DisplayPort 1.4a, a single HDMI 2.0b, and a dual-link DVI connector. Next up from the Palit, at the same price point, we're going to be looking at the Zotac Gaming 1650 Super Twin Fan Edition. Now with this one, it does actually sport a very similar kind of small form factor. It's going to be perfect for those wanting to use it in a small form factor PC or some kind of media PC in their living room. It does have slightly better style with it, with kind of the edges and, you know, the grey accents, that kind of thing. The heatsink is pretty large on this one, and it does take up the majority of the card, but you're not going to, again, find any heat pipes here. Under the shroud, we can see a single heatsink, which is going to help assist in cooling down the VRMs, something that actually the Palit card didn't have. So again, maybe you're going to get a little bit extra performance because that memory and the VRMs is just going to be that little bit cooler, therefore running more efficiently, and therefore consequently maybe boosting for that little bit longer. Like the Palit card, it will take up 2 slots in your case, and connection-wise we're looking at the same with the single DisplayPort, single HDMI, and a dual-link DVI port. Now out of these 3 cards, moving on to the MSI, it is actually the largest out of all of the cards, and there is a very good reason why. It does sport the Twin Frozer 7 cooler on there, which has pretty much been running for the last couple of years, and we have seen it on some of the other 16 series GTX cards that have come out recently. The cooler itself, in my opinion, does actually probably look the best, just because, again, it kind of adds a little bit of 3D to it. It's got some edges on it, it's got some different kind of colours, and it just looks a little bit more premium, but that is going to come at a price point as well because it is actually the most expensive card that we've got here today. In terms of the cooler, it does feature 2 85mm fans, and they do also have a 0 dB mode, meaning that if the card isn't being taxed, they will shut down, bringing the acoustics to 0. Underneath the fans, you'll find that this is the only card with heat pipes, and it has 3 of them because 3 is the magic number.
3, that's a magic number.
You can also see when you look underneath the cooler that it does have a metal plate, which is encompassing, I guess, over the memory and over the VRM. So again, it's going to add to keeping that kind of sustained boost for longer, which in theory should give us extra performance over time. As with the other cards, it does take up 2 slots in your case, but there's a slight difference with the connectors on here. Instead of going for the single DisplayPort, HDMI and DVI, they've actually plumped for 3 DisplayPorts and a single HDMI. So no DVI port on this one, so definitely sort of research into that if your monitor only supports DVI. So with all that out of the way, we've looked at all of the cards. We kind of have our MSRP ones, and we have the one coming in slightly more expensive, but a lot of it's going to come down to performance. I mean, is the MSI going to give us that extra performance that we so desperately crave? Let's find out. Let's look at them glorious, glorious benchmarks. now that the performance is out the way, obviously we wanted to see how far these cards could be pushed, because you got to think, if this has got the sort of biggest, beefiest cooler on there, in theory, we should be able to get some really, really good overclocking results on this. Zotac have always been really, really good at kind of giving us extra performance, I guess, where it counts through overclocking, because they have actually got a really nice kind of sleek cooler design on there. The Palit with that larger fan, maybe that's going to bring the temperatures down, so again, it can boost for longer, and we can maybe push it that little bit further on the boost clock. So when it came to overclocking, as you can see in the results, we were able to push both the memory and the core clock on both the cards pretty well, actually. We were able to maximize the memory in most cases, and the core clock gave us a nice little boost. But the real question is, how's it actually going to relate to real world performance? So we tested it in 3D Mark Firestrike as well as in Ghost Recon Wildlands, and you can see the differences as to kind of what that extra performance meant when it comes to sort of real world gaming. So now that we've looked at the performance, the overclocks, and kind of spoke about all the cards, what does it really mean? I mean, when it comes to 1080p 60 FPS gaming, I don't think you're going to find better on the market at the moment. Obviously, we have to see what's going to kind of come from the AMD side of things, but I think Nvidia really have got the market stolen here. If you are looking at, I guess, moving up from 1080p gaming up to 1440p, I don't think you're going to be too disappointed. You got to remember that out of all the games that we kind of ran, we did run everything at high, whereas yes, if you're going to be running at 1440p, you're probably going to have to knock that down to medium, or stick to maybe playing single player games instead of these multiplayer ones, where the kind of lag and things like that are really going to make a difference. I mean, no one wants to get killed in a multiplayer game and, you know, get teabagged, do they? Ugh. So where does it put the 1650 Super, I guess, in comparison with AMD? Well, the only kind of AMD card that we could really test against that's, I guess, equivalent is the RX 580. The difference is, you got to remember, Nvidia compared to AMD's kind of previous generation, you're going to find that this is going to run cooler, more efficiently, and that's then going to lead to that boost clock being able to boost up for longer for sustained periods. Now, there were some, I guess, weird results with this. The Palit was, well, the most noisiest, and therefore it was the most coolest. If we could maybe tweak that fan profile and not make it as aggressive, then I think actually the MSI would come out on top, because it does have the 0 decibel mode, so it's not going to be noisy when you don't want it to be, and when you are gaming, it is technically the coolest running one out of these when you compare how cool it is compared to how noisy it is. I mean, the Palit was fantastic when it came to temperatures, but there's a very good reason, because it was noisy, because that fan profile is so aggressive. I guess the Zotac comes in somewhere in between. So I guess the big question is, would I buy one of these cards? I mean, out of the three, personally, I'd probably go for the MSI. It does look the best, and it does have, I guess, a few extra technologies that the other two don't. It does have the twin Frozer 7 fan with the 0 decibel mode. It does have the extra connectors on the back that I'd probably harness more than having a single HDMI, single DisplayPort, and single DVI. But who is this really aimed at? Personally, because of at the time of filming and when this actually came out, we're on the lead up to Christmas. There's going to be a lot of kids out there who want to, I guess, have a gaming PC for Christmas, and I honestly think this is going to be perfect for them, because it's going to be great for 1080p 60 FPS gaming. And you got to remember, just look through all the games that we tested. We test everything on high, and the games we tested aren't exactly, I guess, for the faint-hearted. I'm pretty sure that all these kids who want a $500, 500 quid kind of gaming PC are actually going to be playing Fortnite and Apex Legends, where you're going to find these are easily going to do 100 frames per second and upwards, depending on the quality settings that you put on them. So yeah, food for thought. There you go, guys. Let me know in the comments section below. Would you buy a 1650 Super? If you would you go for the Zotac, MSRP pricing, the Palit, MSRP, but a little bit on the noisy side, or the MSI for, I guess, a little bit more money, but you do get a little bit better for it. Extra build quality, that kind of stuff. Really interesting to see what you guys think. Until next time, I will see you in the next one. You know exactly what to do. So yeah, see you later, guys. Bye-bye. Hey everyone, Andy Raffel from eTechnics.com, and 1080p gaming is big business these days. So, I don't even know where I'm going with this.